All right. For episode one, I wanted to start by sharing my story. It's a rock bottom story that involves a lot. It's breakup, it's career. It's basically the result of what happens when you live life on autopilot. So I'm going to talk about how much that sucked for a bit, and then kind of how I navigated through it all, and then into some like advice for anyone who's maybe currently going through something similar and a whole bunch of other stuff too along with that. And so we talk about identity quite a bit, faith, and really just navigating life when it punches you in the face. Um, Also, how I'm now able to say that this whole rock bottom story that you're about to hear is probably the best thing that could have ever happened to me. So, like, how am I able to say that now? My dad is the one who's interviewing me. So, when you see the other guy, uh, that's who that is. And yeah, now I'd like to thank my two sponsors, Jack Honey and God. Yep. Without those two, could not have gotten through this whole time period that we're about to talk about. So thank you to those two. All jokes aside, seriously, thank you for being here. Thank you for wanting to listen to my story. And yeah, go enjoy the episode.
Let's flash back to 2019. What was your life like back then?
Yeah, 2019, at least for the first few months, that was second semester senior year. So I was playing baseball. I had a girlfriend, great relationship, drinking a lot of beers, having fun, partying with friends, like trying to live it up as much as I could. I had a job lined up, which was not a lot of people could say that. I got the job in December, engineering job back home, making good money. Everything was in line for me to just go out and have fun for these next few months of senior year. So honestly, I felt like I was on top of the world. I felt like freaking Superman, and nothing was ever really going to go wrong. I mean, the biggest thing that could go wrong was we weren't going to win the conference championship that year, and we didn't. And that was like, it sucked, but that was the biggest thing on my mind. So that was 2019 was awesome. I mean, all of college, 2019 was those first few months, especially, and then graduated in May. It was awesome.
So then you graduate in May, right? Everybody leaves, and you start the wonderful life you had planned on having, right?
Yeah. So graduated in May. That was kind of tough. Again, like baseball ending. You move back home. I mean, anyone who's gone through that knows it's just weird. It's just different. And so moved back in with you, started this job. A lot of my friends also moved back home, which was cool. We were hanging out on weekends, drinking beers, having fun. But yeah, I look back on, the rest of 2019, beginning of 2020 of just, I don't know, it was weird. It was, you're getting acclimated. You're getting acclimated to this entirely new life that you've never stepped foot in it before. It's like, is this what it's like? Is this all there is? Kind of like I was having a little bit of those thoughts. But again, like I wasn't far enough into it to really realize, it necessarily wasn't what I wanted yet. I think I had a lot of good things around me, like the relationship, like the friends that were back home, and you get acclimated with your high school friends again, which was awesome. So there was a lot of, I don't know if distractions is the right word, but a lot of things that were masking that feeling of, man, is this kind of it? Like I'm living for the weekend, cool. But that little bit of, am I going to do this for the next 40 years of my life? But I never really went down that road until 2020. So, I don't know, May-ish of 2020. Well, first COVID, right? COVID's
Right.
happening, right? So
And
that
you
was
were
crazy.
working a lot, right?
I was working a shit ton. Working probably like 50, 60-hour weeks.
Late nights on the phone, 11 o'clock at night. I'm trying to go to sleep. You're on
Yep,
the
yep.
phone.
On the phone with India.
Yeah.
Yeah, that part definitely. Yeah, but again, it was like I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah. So
Right?
that's masking things too, right?
Right.
It's diverting. Yep.
Time wise was, yeah, work was taking up a lot of time. But like like I was no real stranger to like working hard, at least for like
Yeah.
things that I don't want to say really mattered, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like it was a job and I took it seriously, and I didn't want to get fired. I didn't know how you get fired. Again,
Yeah.
first job, like
Yeah. Right.
so yeah, and then 2020, like I said, relationship masked a lot of things. I had this idea of what my future was going to be with this person and, all this stuff. And then, we break up in like May of 2020. And that, I mean, we were living together at the time, but like that really broke me in a lot of ways.
Do you think the things that led up to that point kind of preconditioned you a little bit to take a hard hit? So
hmm,
you got little disappointments, they're building up, you're starting to wear down, and then all of a sudden the bomb drops, right? So
yeah.
that, I bet you, was made it a lot worse, because okay,
Hmm.
that's the last straw, right? And it was a
Right.
big straw.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think that definitely agree. Like I said, I was kind of hinting at like the unhappiness of like career stuff and just kind of what's going on. But yeah, like my identity was really rooted in that relationship because again, I had this idea of what my future was going to be, and we break up and it's like there goes my future, right? And so to take a step back, like I think just the breakup in itself really destroyed me. I took a lot of blame for it. It was a lot of my fault. And coming to terms with that was hard. But yeah, I remember uh, coming home, or I don't know, I was going downstairs in the basement to work out, and these texts that you don't want to get, long term relationship, or long distance relationship, and I'm just sitting there like, you know, heartbroken. I think that's the best way to say it. I don't know when, but at some point, I remember Googling, what does a broken heart feel like? Because that's what it felt like.
Right.
And anyone that's gone through that real loss, like I had never faced any sort of real difficulty, loss, grief ever before.
Right.
And this was like, I put everything, at least mentally. I didn't physically actually put everything there.
Right.
But that was where I put my identity, and it was like, holy shit. Like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what my future looks like. My heart is sitting over there because you just also hurt a person that you supposedly really love and like really believe you're gonna marry someday. Um, and so yeah, I took it really, really hard.
So you're rock bottom, right? Everything has fallen in. You can look at yourself, from rock bottom, as everybody does. What do you see in there? What do you see underneath all this stuff going on in your life?
Yeah. So I think that like the hurt and the pain from the breakup obviously killed, but yeah, like you're saying, like there was so much underneath that I'd been avoiding, I think, for so long that it just all came to the surface at one point. Because it's like you have a really shitty table, right? Wooden table, it's all beat up, it's been out in the rain for 20 years. And but covering it is this really nice tablecloth. And the relationship was that tablecloth and I was that table in a sense. Of you rip that tablecloth off and what really hit alongside the fact that my future was so up for grabs now, it was like, who am I now? Right? Who am I outside of this relationship? Outside of, hey, I also lost baseball the year before, and that was sports were a huge part of my life. Um,
Way of living.
yeah. And so, you know, all of that kind of led to, like, I really during that time hated myself. I hated myself because, like I said, I it was my fault, and I knew it was my fault with this breakup. And and facing that again, COVID. So, like, I want to hit on that because COVID, I had nothing else to do except sit in this disaster mess that I created, and it was, you know, I couldn't go out, I couldn't distract myself. Yeah, I'd hang out with a couple buddies every weekend, and I'd drink my face off to run from it, but I had to sit with it, and that part really sucked. And so, yeah, I hated myself for hurting this person, um, especially considering the fact that, yeah, you say you love this person, and you know, you're not really showing that. I realized I was very selfish. Uh, Even when I did good things for other people, it was to get points. It was for, oh, this makes me look good. So great for me.
So how hard was that for you to do, right? So a lot of people will go through a breakup, they'll go through a hard time, and then they'll point everywhere else, right?
Hmm.
So it sounds like you did that a little bit different. So you were able to look, I mean, you did have a lot of time
Yeah.
because of COVID, right? But that's a tough thing for a lot of people to do, is to say, okay, well, it was me. I was a big part of that.
Yeah.
So you were able to look inside and go pretty deep, it sounds like, right?
Yeah, I did, and it's hard to like really remember, you know, how do you come to that place, but I think it was just the fact that, like, this person that, you know, knows you better than anybody else called you out on your bullshit. And multiple times. This wasn't the first time. And you know, not that I was an asshole, not that I was a dick, but like I said, there was those moments of where I'd show like really who I was, and it was selfish. And I think I also portrayed this character that was like this great guy all the time, and like I was in a lot of ways. But it was those moments where like the cracks would show, and again, the person you're with in a relationship like sees it, and you know, it was dishonesty, it was selfishness, it was all that stuff. And so I think, to answer your question, I think, you know, I there was no other finger to point. You know, I there was
Yeah, well, a lot of people still do that, right? So,
yeah.
but so you look and you're seeing all these faults in yourself, things that you can improve. How'd you feel about that? Like, what were your feelings?
Yeah, like I said, it was just a deep emptiness. A deep emptiness, a heaviness at the same time in a weird way. I mean, I was depressed at the time. I remember you asking me if I was like kind of depressed.
Yeah, and you lied to me.
I didn't lie. I didn't know. I didn't know what
Yeah,
depression was like. No,
yeah,
I
I know.
said, I think I said, yeah, probably a little bit.
Yeah,
Cuz like I didn't know, right? I
yeah.
was just like, fuck, man. Like, it sucked. Yeah, I mean, it felt like there were months, you know, especially where it was just deep despair. It was hopelessness. It was, again, to go back to the future, it was everything everything was in question now.
Hmm.
Going back to what I did before, who I was before, the choices I made before, it was, what am I going to do in the present to try and fix this? Because I'm a fixer. And this was like a problem that I, for the first time, seemingly couldn't fix, which broke my brain too.
Mm-hmm.
And then looking ahead to the future, again, I think, it's weird. You're 22, you're in this relationship, and you also know that the career isn't great. You've lost baseball, you've lost college friends, you've lost your old way of living. It's like the identity immediately does go to the relationship because that's really the
thing that's left, right?
yeah, in a way. And so, yeah, once that left, like the whole future was like, now what? We're not moving down south, and I'm not going to live there.
Mm-hmm.
So that means I'm living here, and all this stuff also led to me really questioning like the career. To hit on that part, right? Like it's the table. It's a leg on a table of my identity, right? The relationship was gone, so the next closest thing inevitably is kind of your career because you're doing it 10, 12 hours a day, right? Obviously. So I'm like, all right, well, relationship gone, and now I'm just doing this thing 10, 12 hours a day that I'm realizing I don't really like it. And then that triggers, well, then what the fuck did you just get your degree in? Of you just spent 4 years getting a degree in this. Not to mention like you, not like in a bad way, but like just parental pressure of
Mm-hmm.
how can I ever tell my dad or my parents that, hey,
Thanks,
the degree,
but no
yeah,
thanks.
the degree that you guys paid for,
Yeah.
like I don't know about it. It's all
Right.
that stuff, and so that like all of that led to, right, like the career question. I can't say it enough. Everything was in question, past, present, and future. My belief system was so shattered. I had no clue what to believe. And especially about the future when, again, like relationship, career, all of it blows up in your face. I had no clue. So I sat in it for, I don't know how long, a month or two, of just, I have no clue what to do. So I'm going to drink. I'm going to, like, you don't even know this. Maybe you do. Every night, maybe not every night, but most nights, we'd hang out after work, eat dinner, like watch TV. And then when you would go to bed, I would go upstairs and grab like a bottle of Jack Honey. And I wouldn't get drunk, but I'd have like a glass.
Yeah.
I'd have a glass. I'd have like some nicotine, whether Zyn or like a little disposable smoke thing, and I'd watch either stand-up comedy or like a sermon, and that was my like grieving mechanism.
Okay.
Because like that was like
Whatever
the only
works.
thing. Yeah, that was the only thing that.
Right?
Yeah, it was short term, but that was the only thing of like, all right, like this is all right now.
Yeah,
like it was
makes it a little bit better.
Yeah,
right?
it was like an hour of just, you know what? Like let's block out all that uncertainty and despair and hopelessness of the future and what the hell's you are and your life is. Right. Just kind of medicate in a way. Which is not a long-term solution, but it worked for the short term, so.
All right, so you got all this going on, right? Yeah. You're pretty low. Yeah, you're depressed. You don't know about the job. Girlfriend's gone. Lots of going on with your friends.
Yeah.
So how do you get through all of it?
Yeah, so I think, like I said, after a month, maybe 2 months of really just sitting in it and just being in that deep pain, and which I think I needed, by the way, to just kind of think about it and sit in my, like, how could you do this? Mm-hmm. To, like, really figure out the root of the problem. And so I think maybe, like most people, I thought I'd get another chance at the relationship. History kind of told me I might. And again, I was grabbing at stuff. Right. That was me kind of grabbing at the future. Like I wanted that future to be whole again. Right. And so I thought I'd get another chance. And so I was like, all right, well, let's actually fix the problem for once. And that was what I realized. It was, who I am. It was who I am, in my head versus what you're doing. That, like, get rid of the selfishness, have integrity, be honest always, all those things that I realized I wasn't really doing. So I was like, all right, well, those are kind of the problems. So whenever you get another chance, be that person, truly be that person who is all of those things. And so what did I do? It sounds kind of funny, but I just started doing the right thing no matter what. And I think we all have that good voice in our head that tells us do that thing, right? And I truly do believe that, and I just wasn't listening to it all the time before.
But you said you were reading and you were listening to sermons, right? So did that give you information? I mean, time is going by, right? And you're studying, you're trying to figure your stuff out. Like, it takes some knowledge to be able to identify these things, right?
Yeah.
And then what you're going to do about them. So you said you read and you listened to sermon.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, why don't we start there? Because, yeah, I think, good point. To take a little step back, yeah, I think something that I kind of immediately jumped into when things really hit shit really hit the fan was, I somehow stumbled across like sermons, like Rick Warren sermons about pain and suffering. And I would listen to those all day. I would listen to those all day when I was working. Like, there's no fucking shot I was actually working. There's not, like, you kidding me? I was trying to work, but I would listen to them all day, and those little things made me feel better. It made me understand pain better. It made me, I also listened to sermons and things about relationships and marriage and stuff, and not to mention, like you said, audiobooks of just people that inspire me. And all that stuff, I do think did start to change that mindset that I have of, there's a lot of just new information that no one had ever really told me before. And it was practical. It made sense. And I think it started with those things to really just get the thoughts right.
So you had to work at it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. You're a hard worker.
Yeah.
And you had to work at this like you worked at everything else.
Yeah, but I think it was why, why did I do that? It was because I was in so much pain, right? And it was get this pain, like fix the pain. That's how people change, right? And so, I was in so much pain that this is the only thing that really makes me feel better. I have to go deeper and deeper and deeper and keep doing it because I don't want to feel this anymore. Right. And
do you know why it made you feel better? Or it just did and you just went with it, right?
I don't know. I mean, I think with the pain and suffering, like sermons specifically, it gave me a reason for how pain could somehow be a good thing. And that kind of gave me some hope, I think, of, God could use this for good somehow. And I had never, again, this is the first time I really felt real pain. And so I had no clue how to deal with it. But here's this guy saying all this great stuff about, how much God uses pain and all this. And it did give me hope. It did kind of motivate me to, and the laptop goes down.
And we're back.
Where was I? Yeah, so the pain.
Rick Warren.
Yeah, so let's move on to, unless you want me to talk more about stuff there.
No.
Okay,
that's fine.
So that stuff really helped get my mind right, and then I, like I said, I really just started doing the right thing no matter what, to really fix the who are you, man? Like, have some integrity, stop being selfish. I if there were dishes in the sink, I did them. If there was a homeless person on the side of the road, I gave them $1.
Wait, you did dishes?
I
I missed that day.
I did, but it was like if there's toothpaste
Yeah.
stuck on the side of the sink, I did it. If it was like a lot of like cleanliness stuff, which is weird, like I don't know if I made my bed before that, but doing shit like that, it was just
It was a start, right?
yeah. I mean, I think a good example is also I picked up more litter than ever in my life. Which you're gonna hate because you hate doing that, but I picked up more things off the ground during that stretch than ever before because it was just like that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And so it was like it wasn't 100% of the time, but it was like 99% of the time. Listen to that freaking good voice in your head, man, and it worked. It did work. And so, not to mention just being honest with myself, with you, with other people. I started writing a lot also around that time, just to get thoughts out. I mean, I think journaling is a great thing to do, but yeah, I started writing a lot just to, I don't even know why, keep track of things.
Well, there's a lot of value to journaling.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you probably started that because I did it all the time. Maybe you picked it up from there and just tried it and you started to feel good about it maybe, right? I don't know.
I think so too. Yeah. Cause I also didn't talk to people. I barely talked to you about what was really going on. I mean, I didn't really know, but, yeah, I think it was an outlet. It was a way for me to like get things out. And so, yeah, let's get the train back on the tracks in terms of like timeline here. So all of this to say, my goal was to get the girl back. Okay. I was doing all of this stuff to get that future back, to get her back. And once I got that shot, to prove that, hey, I am actually this guy and we're good, right? Like we can do this. Like we're good. We got future back on. And so I did get that chance. Try things again, couple months, and ultimately it didn't work, right? And that was that might have hurt even more in a way. I remember coming home from that and hugging you and crying my eyes out. And it was hard because I knew, all right, like this is it. Like there's no third chance. And so, all these months of the goal is get back and do all this, and I got it, and I did it. I proved it. I was that guy. I did change. But it didn't work. And that kind of crushed me a little bit. But I did realize for the first time, one, like I said, like I actually changed who I was. Like that happened, right? God was working in me. Like all this stuff was pointing in a good direction. I started to actually like who I was, right? Said I hated myself, kind of thought I was a monster before. Like I have integrity. I'm honest. I'm really starting to love this new guy that I'm becoming, which felt good, right? And with that also, it was a lack of regret. It was a lack of regret because there wasn't a thing I would change about that second chance. I had done everything right, I thought, and it didn't work out. And as much as that sucked, it was, all right, well, God must not want this to happen, right? And like, I don't even necessarily think that I thought that in the moment, but I remember the next day after, that second breakup, that's when I fully surrendered my life to God. I was like, you know what, dude? And he knew this. I was doing all this stuff to get back there, right? And so it's still the identity. My identity was still with the relationship, and I was kind of faking it with God in a sense. I was using God. I was using all that stuff, which is not how God works. And so, you know, if it did work, if the relationship was back on, you know, who's to say like I wouldn't just go back to my old ways kind of and kick God to the side again. So I think, yeah, but I kind of fell in love a little bit with that. There's not a thing I would change about this, you know, and, you know, that's when it was really like, okay, then it is what it is kind of, and you just have to move on, you know? And so, uh, especially it made it easier because I had this foundation with God and I was becoming this person that I am now. Um, yeah.
So you held on to your faith, right? And you put your hope in your faith and kind of let the relationship thing go, and you put God first, right?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. I
and
wouldn't
that's
even,
huge.
yeah, I wouldn't even say, I mean, I think actually putting God first is really hard to do.
Yeah, it is.
Like obviously like like I still don't think I was necessarily putting him first, but um it was more of like him making me realize that he needed to be first.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, as well.
And so like that true surrender of, all right, man, I've done it my way. I've tried every bit to do it my way, and look where we landed.
Yeah.
And so it was like, if I can also work this hard and do all the right things and still not get what I want, then I don't know, man.
Yeah.
So you take over from here. Like
Yeah.
that's what it was. It was, and so, you know, how do you get to that point? Well, that was a message that I was hearing months prior, also in sermons and stuff like that. And, you know, you don't just, I didn't just arrive at that moment, but it was like a true, I have no clue. So like, here's my future, man. Like here, take my life.
Right.
I can't do this. So help your buddy out. You know?
All right, so you're starting to come around the turn, right?
Yep.
Things are starting to look up a little bit.
In a sense.
And right, and you still have the career thing hanging over your head, right? And
Yeah.
and that's a big one,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not just the career; it's everybody involved with it. It's
Mm-hmm.
you know, changing a lifestyle. You're making really good money. How do you deal with all that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, you know, this is now time frame wise, we're into 2021, first half of it. You know, the second breakup happens, and yeah, the next thing on the identity ladder was like that career, and I was kind of kicking it to the side along this way because get the relationship back, but yeah, I really kind of dove into, all right, now I'm loving who I'm becoming, like who I am is starting to figure itself out, foundation in God. All right, now what do I do with all this, right? Because at this point I definitely know this job is not it. Right? And so,
Right.
you know, you start to go down that path, and man, it's hard to try and like remember exactly, but 2021 was it was a lot of thinking. It was a lot of dreaming about now what is my future, right? And so, I mean, I had a blank sheet of paper, do whatever you want for your career. That was my mindset, which was obviously freaking hard. I just knew it wasn't, I did come to the conclusion that it was engineering as a whole. You know, I went through that process of, is it the job? Is it the company? Is it engineering? Yeah. And it came to the conclusion that it was engineering. And so, yeah, so 2021, more of just mindset stuff, sermons, books, all that stuff. And then the real change started to happen in 2022 because at that point, it's like a year and a half of realizing this career it like
it
really
blows.
sucks. Yeah. And so, yeah, I was fed up. I was like, enough is enough, dude. You have to do shit. You can't just think about it. 2021 was a lot of thinking about it. Back to 2020 as well. I think that was so important because I was figuring out who I was. Like that's such an important part, I think, in figuring out what to do. And I could go off on a tangent of school teaches us backwards. We tell kids, hey, figure out what to do, and then in 15 years you'll figure out who you are. Yeah. So, anyways, 2022 rolled around, and like I remember I have a picture of it. I wrote out a bunch of lofty goals for the year and for my future and did all that stuff. My habits, I wrote them down. But the idea was take action. I called it 2022 was the year of action. Just do stuff. So I did. And at the time, like I said, blank sheet of paper, all I really knew about this new career that I wanted to do was that I wanted to help people. And that is a pretty wide net. And so, but, it's a starting point, right? The flip side of it is, well, a lot of things help people, right? The job I was doing already did help people, but it wasn't in the way that I necessarily wanted to. I wanted to be more direct. So I talked to people. I talked to, for a while, I was like, I'll join or start a nonprofit, talk to nonprofit directors, talk to eventually like life coaches, joined free career workshops. I just said yes to a lot of things that might push me forward. I would join those workshops, and then I'd email each and every person to set up a one-on-one meeting afterwards. And not all of them were great, but there's a pretty good mentor of mine that I still talk to this day from one of those things. So it was, I guess, in a way, it was a lot of networking. But I also decided to start helping people myself more directly. I decided to run a 5K, 10K, half marathon and fundraise for each and every race. Ended up raising like, I don't know, $6 or $7 grand for just people who, hungry or cancer people, like whatever. It was a fun thing to do. It gave me a challenge, something to be competitive about. 2022 was a lot of fun too. I look back on that summer, and it was a lot of fun, right? I'd kind of figured out who I was and let go of the future that I thought I once had, and was just like, wherever this thing goes, again, faith, like God's got it, right? And so, I'd also spend days during the week, come home from work from a long day and just like sit down and just research or work on my resume, which was a dead end. I worked on my resume for like a freaking year and got nowhere. Thank God. But
you lived with the resume expert though. What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah. But everything on my resume was engineering. I was like, well, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Anyways, so 2022 was a lot of action in the pursuit of that new career and helping people.
Yeah, well, you those two things, right? So you mentioned Rick Warren, right? And Rick Warren's big thing is, to find your purpose. And to do that, you need to try everything. Even though you think you might not like it, try it, and find opportunities to try things.
Yeah.
And serving. I mean, those are huge, huge things that really help a lot of people, even though they don't think that's the answer. It's proven that those are very helpful things to do.
Yeah.
So trying different things. You're not going to know what you want to do unless you try them.
Mm-hmm.
You could have an illusion that this thing is a certain way, and then you go do it, and it's like, oh, I was wrong. Right. Just like, you spent all that time with engineering, thinking it was a certain thing, and you thought your relationship was a certain thing, and you never know, right? But trusting God and trying things and going in with open eyes and open heart is huge.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of really, like, I was focused. I was determined to 2022, I'm leaving home. I'm going somewhere. I don't know where, but I have to quit this job. Like, I can't go another year doing the same freaking thing that I hate it. And I was working a shit ton then too. Yeah. And so anyways, like, to jump to, all right, just the career, to hit on that a little bit more. I finally, like in like July or August, came up with this idea. We were in Cape Cod. I was with one of my best friends, Ben. We're at a Cape Cod League baseball game. I see one of my old coaches there. He asked me, I tell him about my career stuff. He's like, hey, you ever think about getting into coaching? I was like, no, dude, I have a 9 to 5. When the hell would I do coaching? And I don't know, but like I kept thinking about it after. And I was like, what if I did do coaching? You know? And at the time also like a couple of my good buddies were coaching at the school that I could, like my alma mater where I could potentially coach at. And so then the idea just hit me of, why don't you help people be prepared for life after college, life after sports, because you weren't, and you clearly like know, I did it the wrong way. I did it the wrong way in a sense, and I wanted to help people try and figure out the right way. And so as soon as I kind of had that idea and things were in motion, I had no clue how it was going to make any money, but I really, really, really wanted to quit and I was in pain. And so I just did it. I ended up quitting in September. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell you. I didn't tell my parents. I told the 2 guys I'd be moving in with beforehand to like lock it in. Guys, I'm coming. And then, I had the conversation and left. And luckily, like I stayed on part-time, fully remote for like over a year after that, which was a blessing in disguise. But at the time it was just like, again, faith. It was, I really think God's put this thing on my heart to go do this thing and to break the, I don't know, plan or whatever you've been doing before, and like go do this thing. And so I left home. I left here around November of 2022, and I went up and go do this thing, and it was the hardest thing I'd ever done, but it forced me to work on something more than I'd ever worked before, and it was cool. Like I think the best way to put it is I knew I had something special in me, and I needed to find out. And this was the way I was going to find out, is I was going to work my face off. I was going to trust in God more than ever before. And I had no real plan. Like I moved up to Springfield, and then it was like, all right, what are you now going to do with this program that you're going to start, of working with college athletes and preparing them for life. And so I loved it. It was not easy. It was really hard, but I also kind of all over the place here, but I also felt like I needed to leave home. I needed to get away from going out, all like once or twice a weekend, drinking, bars. Not that it was bad, but in a way, like I wanted to get away from my friends. So I had a lot of friends and it was all great stuff, but it was not, I was trying to figure out this career thing.
Yeah,
and
you
so,
wanted to focus on what you had a lot to figure out.
Yeah, right. And so I just needed to be out of that environment, and this was like my way out. And so when I had that idea, I jumped on it. And, I don't have to get into all the details of what those 2 years were like, but it was a lot of growth, loneliness, really truly figuring out who I am even more, and helping people, helping kids directly with a lot of things, with things they're going through right now, but also, preparing them for their future, something that, giving back whatever wisdom I could.
Okay, so looking back on it now, how are you different from 2020 going through everything that you went through?
Could probably write a book about that. I think the biggest thing, we've kind of alluded to it a little bit, is, we talked about identity quite a bit, right? It was relationship, it was baseball, it was all this stuff that, eventually kind of led me to a place that was rock bottom, right? And so for me now, the biggest difference is that identity, like number one is faith. It is God, because of so much. but he's not going anywhere. He's like he's the rock. Like, yeah, like there's, and some people might hear that and be like, cool, man. But yeah, like my world was flipped upside down. I didn't know left from right. And this thing, like God changed me, one, and it was the only sure thing that I had. And so now, like looking back, that like my faith is so strong. I'm able to change careers and start a business and do these seemingly kind of crazy things because of faith in him, right? And so, kind of along with that, I see pain and suffering so much differently now. Uh because 2020, the breakup, all that, the whole time period was the most rock bottom for my world that I could ever get. And now when I look back on that, it's the best thing that could have ever happened to me. And that's like a hard thing to say because multiple people got hurt. There's pain in this as well, right? So I don't want to like discredit that, but I needed an awakening, and God used the breakup to open my eyes to, hey man, this is who you truly are. And, also, he showed me that pain could turn into something really good if you give it to him to trust and like trust in him for it. And so now when I see pain or challenges, or when I deal with it myself, when I have a hard day at work, when I haven't made real money in a year, when I've been single for years, it's like I'm so much more equipped to handle that because of God and because of the faith that I have in him, of like, right, like I surrender the whole thing to you, man. Like I have a plan, you have a better one. And so like let's do that one. And I might not understand, I'm not going to get it, but yeah, when I go through hard times now, I think try to see things from God's perspective, because when we're in our pain, we're just looking at it. We got blinders on. It's like, fuck, this hurts. This is so painful. But if you zoom out and kind of look at it from how God's probably seeing it, he sees everything. You know, that you can kind of maybe see how, okay, maybe at some point down the line, I could maybe see how this could actually be a good thing. Right. And it's like, how do you get there? Again, God took the hardest, most difficult, shitty situation ever for me, and now I'm able to say it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Like, so now it's like, all right, man, not like bring it on. Like, I don't want to say that.
Be careful.
Yeah. But yeah, like I'm much more risk tolerant and pain tolerant. And I also don't think things are a big deal. Like I don't give a shit about so many things now because like of that faith, and just like don't sweat the small stuff. Like I think I do that well. But yeah, I think the biggest thing to answer the question is my identity is rooted in something that is stable and that's not going to go away. And I also like love who I am now. Like I didn't love who I was back in 2020.
Right. It's a good spot to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you tell somebody that's at rock bottom? Like if you use all the stuff you just talked about, all your experience, what you've learned, what do you say to that guy, right? That's going through, or girl that's going through a breakup, they're going through some other loss, right? Maybe they're struggling with their career. It could be anything, right? Rock bottom's rock bottom. So what do you say to that person?
Yeah.
Based on what you've learned.
Yeah, I think the first one, especially if you're going through that rock bottom, something just happened and you have no clue what to do. I think you have to grieve. Like I talked about that 1 to 2 months of just sitting on the couch, drinking nicotine, sermons, and books. And it was chaos, right? You look back and it's like, what? But that whole time was so important for me because I had to look myself in the mirror and face the reality and be brutally honest about it. And I think it happening during COVID was such a blessing because, again, I was forced to sit with it. I couldn't go out and do stuff. I had to sit in my room and think about it. And that caused me to find like the root of the problem and how do we fix the problem now? How do we go about this? And so, for anyone going through something like that now, it's a lot harder to do that because we're not in COVID anymore. But like force yourself to sit with it and be so honest. Like write it down too. Be honest with yourself because that's how change really happens. And especially if you're in a lot of pain, you know, and it's something that you might have even caused, like take ownership for it, but like look yourself in the mirror and be real. Be real with yourself. And so grieve, I think, is super important. Take ownership, like just tell yourself it's your fault. like take the blame. Whatever blame there is, like I'm sure you had a hand in it. Take responsibility. I think now is probably a good time, kind of like I did, to question everything. If you're at rock bottom, you maybe are questioning everything, but really like do the work, question things, whether it is your career, whether it is who you are, whether it is what the hell the rest of your life is maybe going to look like in your future and maybe your past too. Like question all of it, and that's hard to do, but like don't be afraid of it. Again, like it's kind of a short-term pain for like the rest of your life, to actually solve the problem. I think, just kind of rattling off things here. I think on the flip side of like sit in a dark room and just fucking think about it, like the other side of that, because that, don't do that 24/7. Something that helped me was looking forward to stuff. So like I said, like I would get pretty drunk most weekends and I would look forward to that with my two buddies. It was an outlet. I would get outside. I would go for runs. I think just literally just get outside, go for a walk is important. But I would not every Friday, but a lot of Fridays, I would pick up a can of dip and go to the driving range and just hit balls by myself. And I don't know, this is like those little things that give you that joy, right? I think it's finding ways to have fun. Like do whatever you want to have fun and find that enjoyment. Because when you're really going through it, you need to find some fun, right? And so I think look forward to stuff, look forward to those things. If you're not in a lot of pain, I would say don't look forward to stuff all the time. I actually this is a tangent, but I think if you're looking forward to things too much, you got to look at what you're doing right now. If you're just talking about normal people and normal life, because like, all right, if you're looking forward to vacation after vacation and Friday after Friday, you're probably not liking what you're doing every day. And so that's for normal people that are not going through pain. But on the flip side, if you are going through the pain and you know what you're doing every day does suck because of this pain, well then, yeah, look forward to stuff, man. That's okay. What else? I think talk to people. It's hard. This is something I did not do and still kind of suck at, is just talk to people. Find your best friend, find a parent, whoever you trust, a non-judgmental person, right? That you can just get things out to. This is what, like, if you're not that kind of guy, journal, right? But I think something with this whole idea, also quarter life clarity, to zoom out a little bit, is so many people are everyone's going through shit. Everyone, especially people that are in their 20s, early 30s, like, no matter what, no matter how good it looks, I think everyone's struggling with something. And so knowing that, it's like, yeah, let's talk about it, right? And so I think when you open up to people, like the right people, people you're close to, you can realize it's really helpful. And not even to get somebody else's opinion on necessarily what to do or advice, but just to talk about it. And like, that's kind of hypocritical because I didn't do that a ton. I talked to you a little bit about stuff when I was really going through it, but yeah.
Well, I've seen you grow in the past year.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I know you did things, you talk about hitting golf balls and things like that. But I've seen other things in you that you've dove pretty deep into community, right? And you've met some really good people. A lot of them share your faith, and I've seen how you've got pulled into service and very deep relationships with people you kind of just met.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think maybe you can talk about how that all came about, because that is really one of the bigger things for healing inside is, the deep connections.
Yeah. 2025 for me has kind of been the year of community.
And
I-
serving.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of serving community, right?
I've, towards the end of 2025, I mean, in terms of faith, I've done it pretty much solo for years. And there's a reason that God talks about community in the Bible so often. And so I was like, all right, man, I'll listen. I'll finally do it. And so I did. And it's scary at first, but yeah, I've in just a few short months really cultivated some deep relationships with people that I've known for 5 months. And yeah, I think once you get into community, and like, what does that mean? It's, for me, it's like community through the church. It's hard to just get into community if you're not, like, I don't know how else to, join a run club or something. I don't know. Find similar minded people, and don't be afraid to be vulnerable in those settings when you do meet those people. Because, like I said before, everyone's dealing with it. And if I've learned anything from these first few months of community, is that everyone's struggling with something. And so we don't talk about it as people in like their 20s. And again, big reason for this quarter life clarity thing and eventual community. But yeah, I think who your circle is really matters, and talking to those people about it, about the struggles, about the pain, is super valuable.
Yeah, so I've seen you go from, almost isolation type of stuff, right, to getting involved in the community. And what I saw happening with you in that community is the community you got into, there were a lot of very open people that just were kind of everybody's in different development stages. So those people were very comfortable because they've done it so many times, opening themselves up and talking about their issues and making themselves vulnerable. And I think you being in that atmosphere helped you to get to that level.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're at that level, and now newcomers are coming in. I'm seeing this happening. And they're at the same point you were at when you came in, and you're opening them up, and it's a cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, and you realize that we're all the same in a sense. Everybody's different, but we're all the same. Just to harp on, like, we're all going through stuff. And so, yes, like community, I think super, super, super valuable. And even if, just to flip it a little bit, talk to your current friends too, because especially guys, we have surface level conversation after surface level conversation, and it's great. You have a lot of fun doing stupid shit, going golfing, talking about the game, but your friends that you've had for a while too, like, and especially guys, I don't know what girls talk about, but I think they have deeper conversations than most guys do. But like, talk to them too. Like, I don't think you necessarily have to find a new community. You can just have the balls to talk to your close friends that you've been with for a while and like just be vulnerable. Um and one more thing I want to hit on in terms of, just all right, man, like rock bottom, what I would say to do, uh like we've talked about God quite a bit. That's super important for me, is my faith and rooting my identity in him. And so that doesn't happen, right? Let's go back to 2020. I I was in a lot of pain, and so all that pain led to, I need answers, man. I need to figure out my purpose. What is life about? What's the meaning of it? And I seeked those answers to no end, and I got them. And I think, to maybe not even the person that is at rock bottom, but is just maybe coasting on autopilot like I was, just going through the motions, just life is life, and I work my job and have fun on the weekends and do it all over again. There's nothing wrong with that, but if you have that like urge every now and again that, like, man, there's got to be more to this. Like, is this it? And especially when you look around and see everyone else is doing the same thing you're kind of doing, it's like, is everyone else feeling this kind of too? My answer would be yes. But if you're feeling that, fucking do the work, man. Like say no a time or two to going out or drinking those beers, and like do some research. Like, it's the answers are out there, but I think, kind of like I was, there's so many good distractions. There's so many fun things to do and all this stuff that we spend so much time on that we don't focus on, hey, what's the meaning of life in this whole thing? And I think everyone has those thoughts, but we're stuck going to games and drinking the beers and all that stuff. And I love that stuff. I do. But there's a time and place for each. And like, the answers are out there. Freaking ask ChatGPT. Like, just don't be afraid to do the real work and find some real answers about life, about yourself. And I think if you do that and are not afraid of what the answer might be, like, I think, personally speaking, that's where I found like real life.
Right. So, like, interview question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where's all this going?
Yeah, I don't know, but no, I mean, I think where's all this going is a big question. I think more of like, who am I becoming, I think, is really what I like to focus on. I think I truly actually am in alignment with God's purpose for my life and whatever his plan is and all that stuff, no matter how challenging it is. But I think there's just I don't know, there's a level of confidence that comes with that, with living in your purpose and being aligned with who God actually is. Because also, like, kind of dancing around that, if you went to Catholic church, Sunday school, and CCD, and then just dropped off with that, like, this is what I'm talking about is completely different. But anyways, we talk about that another time. But there's a profound level of confidence that comes with all of it when the creator of everything is guiding your steps. And when you really believe in that and sit with that, it's, you feel like I talked about earlier. I felt like Superman back in 2019 because of baseball, girlfriend, friends, partying, job. I was on top of the world. I feel like that now. I feel like Superman, top of the world, but it is for completely different reasons. It is because of who God is and my faith in who he is. And when you when you're able to say that, it's again, it's the confidence. It's not worrying about what other people might think of you, because comparison is a real thing for people like my age, in your 20s. And I think it's so easy to look around at what other people are doing, and I should do that because they're doing it. And I look at people 20 years ahead of me, and they're kind of doing the same thing. It's like, uh, they all might be wrong. I think they are. A lot of people are wrong. Just question all of it. And so, I think there's a lack of comparison that allows me to just stay locked into my lane in the game that I'm playing, and the focus that I have in terms of like my purpose and what I feel called to do and who I am. All that stuff, it's addicting. It's the best feeling in the world when you're walking in those footsteps. Um, and yeah, I just don't really care about what other people think anymore. And that's a really cool place to be.
Yeah. Do you think it's a phase, or do you think your heart has changed?
Yeah, I mean, my heart has definitely changed because of, God changes hearts, right?
Right.
A phase in terms of just like the confidence.
Well, like everybody goes through phases in their life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, do you think this is like the new diet kind of thing, or do you
For
think,
me,
yeah,
no, I think in terms of like faith.
just yeah, your whole attitude, right? So,
Yeah, okay.
you talked about God and you talked about a change of heart. You think it's a temporary thing, or you think it's a
No,
permanent thing?
that stays with you forever, I think.
Right. So it sounds like, you talked about real change, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Right. So,
yeah. I think that's a good point too. I mean, there's sayings out there. I mean, especially looking back 5 years ago, people don't change. Uh, Old Dominion song. Some people do. Uh, but yeah, I think, in my experience, real change happened when like I gave it like I faith, right? And so that was like where the real change happened for me. I'm sure it can be done other ways, like I said, just the integrity aspect. But yeah, I think God really stepped in and was like, "Hey, man, that's not who I want you to be. That's not the life I want you to live. Uh, you're gonna do it this way." And I think, that's a lot of Christian stories, and that's a lot of people's stories. And so also too, just kind of on that, if you are in like that rock bottom space, don't run away from it, because God might just be doing that same thing to you right now. It might just be a shaking, an awakening, an earthquake of your identity. And what I would say and what I believe is that's God saying, "Hey, look at me." And I'm living proof that that is a great option. So like, don't run away from that. Again, look for those answers, seek, do the research. Rick Warren sermons on pain and suffering, YouTube, great place to start.
all right. So we talked about a lot of things, right? And talking is good. You've talked about that before, right? So do you feel better going through this interview, like talking things through, or
I wouldn't say, yeah, I'm sure. I don't know if like better is the right word. I think reflecting on it is interesting. I think it's a good exercise to do, especially if you're maybe someone that's gone through something serious and like you can look back on it now. And I think, um, there's a healing that comes with that. There's a healing that comes with revisiting an old story that really shook your world and really changed your life. Uh, just kind of going through this whole process of like preparing for this interview and writing things down. I revisited so many things. Like a lot of what we talked about, I didn't think about until a week ago. I didn't realize them until a week ago. Like realizing that why the breakup sucked so much, why it was so hard was because of all the internal stuff, really, of the future was shaken, of my belief system was shaken, of, it made me look at my career, all that stuff. It's just like, I don't know. I wouldn't have been able to really realize that stuff if I hadn't sat down here. And I think a good place to end is, with this whole idea of the podcast, like I'm the first one sitting down doing one of these interviews. I did that intentionally. I want to put a strong emphasis on people being empowered by their story and not running from their story, not feeling guilty or shame because of it. Because as I'm sitting here, I can like shit on myself for who I was before, and that's okay. Like it's all made me who I was, right? The whole thing, there's a lot of tough stuff that happened there, but again, all of it has made me who I am today, and so I wouldn't change any of it, right? And there's hard things that happen in there, but I wouldn't change any of it. And so it is empowering to sit down and put these words out into the world, to hopefully help someone else who's going through their shit right now, whatever it might be. Everyone's got a different story. Everyone's got a different problem situation. It's not going to be the exact same thing as mine, but hopefully, people are able to listen to it and leave it with maybe some things to try. And at the very least, feeling like they're not alone in their struggle. All right, cut. That is the end of the interview. First off, thank you for listening to the whole thing. I know it was a little over an hour. Like, appreciate you still being here. So it means a lot for you to care about my story that much and care about this whole quarter life clarity thing. So seriously, thank you. One thing I do want to clear up and just hit on, having listened to the interview back now at this point, perks of sitting in the seat that I sit in with putting this together. Anyways, I talked about faith a lot, right? And I just want to be clear that, like, you might be sitting there and thinking, cool, man, like, good for you that you've gotten to this point. You have this faith and this understanding and perspective of what life is and what your life is, and cool, and just kind of thinking that that's not really for you. And I just want to say that that is 100% a lie. Like, did it take work to get to that point where I can say all of these things? 100%. But I'm also still very much a work in progress with this whole thing. And this whole faith thing that I'm talking about is a free gift available to everyone, including you. And I just think, you could listen to me talk and, almost like put me and my faith on a pedestal that, like, it's something you could never get to. And I just want to, again, say that that's absolutely not true. And, does it take work? Does it take effort? Does it take, God kind of opening your heart as well? Like, yes, but just don't think that I'm that different than you, because I'm not. So I think that was really important, just something I wanted to hit on before I close this episode. Another thing, as I end a lot of these episodes by saying, don't try to remember it all. What were the 1, 2, maybe 3 things that really, really hit home with you, that stood out to you? Just remember those, right? Was it something about dealing with my breakup, like grieving and the importance of that? Maybe it was, something about my career and how I handled that, looking forward to stuff. Like, whatever it might be, that's really what I want you to walk away with. And lastly, if you liked this episode, you walked away with stuff, fantastic. like, subscribe if you want. But really, how I want this to grow is by people sharing it with their friends. This whole quarter life clarity thing doesn't happen in a vacuum with just like us just head down like listening to this. Like, I want it to spread. So if you liked it, if you didn't like it, don't send it to a friend. But if you did like it, send it to a friend. It takes a couple seconds. And you know, that's again really how I want this to grow. And lastly, again, thank you for being here. Thank you for giving a shit about my story and sticking around for this long. I know it's a little longer episode, but thank you for caring enough to hear my story. It really means a lot, and I'm glad I was able to be, you know, the first one to really tell my story. So I hope you stick around, and yeah, thanks again for being here.